Today, Telum talks to Quan Nguyen-Masse, VP Culture and Brand for ASEAN at Vero.
Hi, good morning, George. Hi, everyone.
At Vero, we understand your mission is to provide the communications industry with progressive and innovative practices about people and the natural environment. How has Vero achieved this so far? And can you run us through some initiatives you've introduced?
For context, so I joined Vero in 2021, which is basically in the middle of the pandemic. And further in context, I was in touch with fellow industry peers. I used to work for creative agencies, for branding agencies. So I still connect with a few people in there. Some of them were still in companies that made them, sign in and out of offices, very, very strict, very kind of traditional policies. And when I joined Vero, I discovered a very, I think, forward-thinking company. They had already established a few policies to support people in the evolving context of COVID. There were quarterly extra leave days called Wellness Day. People were working remote a lot, back then. So it was a way to push people to disconnect during those 2 years, 2020, 2021. And we also were sponsoring anonymous mental health counseling in a specific program so people could sign up and reach out, talk to a professional, and the costs would be covered by the agency up to $500 per head. So those were pre-existing when I joined. So my mandate joining and to work on culture was to basically pursue, continue, and expand on that.
How difficult is it to implement, though, these DEI initiatives?
We do have values across our offices in Southeast Asia about work that are quite similar. There's still a lot of value placed in diligence, hard work, respect of hierarchy. Those are still prevalent as key principles when you want to show you're performing and a supportive team member. But the policies and programs that we launch, sometimes they don't contradict it, but they kind of challenge the interpretation of what hard work and good work is. So first, what we did was to help people also understand where the strategies and the mindset that we want to share with them comes from. So we wrote down our values. So one of the first exercises I conducted when I joined was to create a culture book, say, okay, we are all passionate about our work. We're all in to really do great work. But here's how we do it, right? So we had 3 core values: kindness, curiosity, and trust. So we could actually share a few, examples of interpretation. What does it mean to believe in trust? It can mean being very reliable, that person who's super diligent, there every day. But another team member can interpret trust by, being very transparent, being very open to receive feedback. And we showed the diversity of these ways of being excellent together, but with very different interpretations of what our core values could mean. So with that, we showed that great work comes in very different shapes, very different colors and styles. We help to redefine what productivity and performance means, so especially during onboarding. We emphasize a lot on the first days that new members should not hit the ground running. That sounds cool in, a movie, but in reality, in our business, you have to take time, you have to study what people are doing around you, you have to identify how to add value, and then a few weeks or even a month or 2 later, then you start actually providing that value and start running. Finally, I think there's a final step for this to solve it, which we really invested in. It's creativity in the internal comms. Often, I think it's an area that's overlooked, where you have an email blast going out, here's the new policy. But we really made sure that we made it tangible and actionable. So we apply the same principles that we do to consumer-driven, consumer-focused comms that we do for our clients. We launched unlimited leave, and we said weekly in a newsletter and on our internal social channels, hey, you should travel. And we edited actually a travel guide. It said, 3 days in Thailand, here's where to go. Nice. And we had a mini travel guide and a link to a booking site so that people could actually, say, okay, I don't even have to think about it. It does help, because that's insights driven. Someone told us before we launched, I don't have time to plan my holidays, so I don't take them. So he said, okay, we'll initiate the thinking for you. Then it will be easier to take the days off.
It's definitely going the extra mile, especially treating employees as actual people, and
Yeah.
promoting those values, and of course creating that very healthy environment for them to produce their best work. Last year, Vero took the Clean Creatives pledge to refuse contracts with fossil fuel companies. Could you share with us a bit about the pledge and the reason behind the sign up?
It was quite a simple decision to make. Like, it didn't take us long. But where we're coming from is that we were having, ongoing discussions on governance. The topic of sustainability was coming up. And our COO brought up this pledge, which I think he heard of from an industry peer. But it was not very well known in Asia yet. And it's still not very well known in Asia until we did a bit of support for them after taking the pledge. We helped to communicate about it a little bit in our region. But our decision was made on understanding the stakes, understanding the data. And the data was researched by in a report by an organization called Influence Map, which showed that the key fossil fuel players had invested recently more than 1 billion of shareholder funds on misleading climate-related branding and lobbying. 1 billion. But at the same time, they would invest 115 billion combined new investments towards fossil fuel extraction, and only 3% of the budget would go to low carbon project. So when we see major spending, in comms going towards campaigns that say we're green, we're working on sustainability, etc., but the actual investment on sustainable and renewable projects is so negligible, then it's a case of lack of transparency or alignment between two realities. So we took the pledge as a business stance. Not really. Someone asked us if we're doing this out of activism. It's not. It's business and sensible long-term planning. We want to have an environment where business can thrive, and everyone knows nowadays that it cannot thrive in the current climate context. And if it keeps accelerating, we can't actually do any work in the future. So we made this decision. We didn't have any clients on the fossil fuel side at that time anyway. So we're not kind of saying no to incoming money. But we've been receiving briefs, and we keep receiving a few now and then. So in relation to those solicitations, we're clear. We have now a clear policy that helps us to say no. Just like this decision to take the Clean Creatives pledge, refusing to work with fossil fuel companies, it needs to be data-based. It needs to be doable. It needs to be aligned with the values of our teams, and it needs to be authentic. We're not around to, we don't want to be making lofty claims, but we'll do maybe, I think, tangible and measurable things one thing at a time, and then see where it goes.
Recently, Vero launched its playbook Greenwatching as a guidance for communicators to combat greenwashing. Based on the playbook, what is one notable insight you can share with brands?
From a comm standpoint, I can highlight one aspect, which is that we encourage communicators to embrace corporate candidness, which means accepting to communicate vulnerabilities of the brand, not just communicating this kind of all perfect picture. Because nowadays I think it's ingrained in marketing and comms that you're promoting something, right? A brand, a service, a product. And when you do so, the usual maths kind of tell you can't tell people the wrong or the less great things. That doesn't sell, right? But in the sustainability context, which is a moving target, right? It's complex, it's hard to achieve impact, and it's even harder to measure it. What we believe is that being transparent and being diligent in comms is the way to go. So, because when you do so, you can really create, I think, engagement with people who follow you, and you can create emulation for industry peers too. So to do so, it's very simple. It's about setting achievable objectives, not lofty goals. Saying we're going net zero by some date doesn't mean anything to anyone, in fact, but saying we will cut down, we will stop putting our waste here and put it there, start putting it there. That's very tangible. And you can be accountable for that.
Thank you so much. First of all, congratulations on Vero launching the Greenwatching book, and also interesting to learn about yourself launching a culture book featuring those core values in your organization. Thank you so much for speaking with Telemedia.
Thank you, George. Thank you, Telum, and thanks to the community. See you around.